For the longest time, I was not a fan of Breath of the Wild. While I didn't hate the game, it removed a lot of aspects that I loved about the Zelda series. Creative dungeons, harmonious music, charming characters, and a memorable story all took a back seat so that the open world could stand in the spotlight. So, when the next Zelda game was announced to be a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, I could not have cared less. The more time went on, the less interested I became. The only reason I decided to pre-order Tears of the Kingdom was because I felt obligated to appeal to my younger, Zelda-obsessed self. But then, something unexpected happened. After beating Resident Evil 4, I decided to replay Breath of the Wild in order to prepare myself for its sequel. And on that playthrough, I ended up falling in love with the game. I stopped focusing on what the game wasn't and began to appreciate the game for what it was. That playthrough alone ignited my excitement for Tears of the Kingdom. So much so that I went to my first ever midnight release to pick the game up early. And after beating the sequel to a game that I love, I was left feeling nothing. Absolutely nothing. I have debated making this video for a long time, because explaining why I don't like Tears of the Kingdom is hard. A lot of things I don't like about Tears of the Kingdom are things that I like in Breath of the Wild. So rather than just focus on why Tears of the Kingdom failed, I'll start by explaining how Breath of the Wild succeeded. My favorite part of Breath of the Wild was exploring its open world. Hyrule is a vast land with many different places to go, and no matter which direction I went, I felt like I was going the right way. There was never anything gating off my exploration. If I wanted to go somewhere, I could, and I was rewarded for my efforts, usually with a shrine, Korok seed, or interesting landmark. Alternatively, if there was something I didn't want to do, then I didn't have to. Every time Cass gave me a riddle, I was out of there faster than Olimar in the submerged castle. This means that the only stuff I did in the game was stuff that I genuinely wanted to do, and that made my playthrough super enjoyable. Tears of the Kingdom took that open world and expanded on it, giving the player even more to explore. So why didn't I enjoy exploring the world this time? I've heard a lot of people say that the exploration was less interesting in Tears of the Kingdom because it's a world that you already explored, but that's not the case for me. This was my third time playing Breath of the Wild. I had already explored that world twice, yet I still felt compelled to explore it again, despite often knowing what I was going to run into. Rather, the issue with Tears of the Kingdom is how bloated the world feels. There's a lot more to explore with the addition of the sky, the depths, and caves, all of which are worthless. The sky is extremely empty, housing some gacha machines and copy and paste shrines where you bring a crystal from point A to point B. Sometimes there's a flux construct. The depths have even less going on, with some zonite crystals, which you need thousands of before getting a meaningful battery upgrade, and light roots that do next to nothing. I guess they hint at where shrines are located on the surface, but the shrine detector already does that. Also, Franck is down here. And caves are easily the worst new addition, only containing a funny frog that gives you a currency for a single shop that I never found, and if you're lucky, a piece of armor that's probably weaker than what you're currently wearing. Heck, even the overworld in Tears of the Kingdom felt bloated. Fairy fountains can't just be used once you find them. Now you have to do a boring side quest that involves finding random musicians, finding the fountain they're associated with, and being their Uber driver because they're too lazy to walk. There's a guy with a sign that you need help by building a stand, which runs itself into the ground very quickly, and gives rewards that are so useless they make expired coupons look like winning lottery tickets. And Korok seeds are mostly the same, but now there's a new method to get them. A slog that involves carrying a Korok to his brethren way off in the distance. Or in my case, throwing him off a cliff because it's a waste of my time. Granted, everything in Tears of the Kingdom is optional once again, so I could have just ignored these things, but I didn't want to. This world still seemed fun to explore, and sometimes it was, but it never felt like exploring was worth it. The long time it took to explore and the very little meaningful rewards always made me feel like I was wasting my time, which is something I never felt in Breath of the Wild. The only thing that never felt like a wasted time in Tears of the Kingdom was the shrines, and that's because the reward you get for completing them is still extremely useful. After all, I could not be bothered to hit up the fairy fountains, and I needed some other way to avoid getting dunked on. But unfortunately, the shrines are not very fun in this game. Shrines were a very big part of Breath of the Wild, and completing them made up a good chunk of my playtime. By the end of the game, I had completed 72 shrines, and I really enjoyed most of them. They were satisfying, bite-sized challenges, and I constantly went out of my way to find them if the shrine radar was going off. In Tears of the Kingdom, I did even more shrines, beating the game with 90 completed. Yet, I didn't enjoy the shrines in this game, and that was because the gameplay of shrines shifted focus. Breath of the Wild shrines were short and sweet. They may not have been complex, but they were engaging enough to feel satisfying upon completion. Granted, not every shrine was like this, as shown by the beyond mediocre Test of Strength shrines, but the vast majority of shrines in this game were simple and satisfying. Tears of the Kingdom shrines are longer, slower, and often involve building stuff with Ultra Hand. These shrines are boring. And this is a problem that extends beyond just the shrines. Using Ultra Hand is not fun. Standing still for 10 minutes while fiddling with random garbage is not my idea of a good time, and I often found it was more fun to just accomplish the task without building. I still built stuff when I needed to traverse something otherwise impossible, but other than that I never felt inspired to engage with Ultra Hand. Granted, if you enjoy making spaceships, torture chambers, and then you'll probably really enjoy this mechanic. But for me, I would rather engage in a fight than build a rocket launcher. I got so fed up with building by the end of the game that I began ignoring challenges by bomb jumping or abusing rewind. I guess you could make the argument that being able to cheese shrines is a good thing because I got to play the game the way I wanted, but cheesing the shrines is not fun, it's just less time consuming than using Ultra Hand. Like the open world, shrines in Tears of the Kingdom fall short of the standard that was set by Breath of the Wild. And unfortunately, the gameplay was not the only downgrade. Despite Breath of the Wild's nearly universal praise, a lot of people claim that the game had a bad story. A lot of people are wrong. The story in Breath of the Wild is actually great, and it's enhanced by the method it's told through: memories. After completing the Great Plateau and talking to Impa, we already know all the important story beats. 100 years ago, Ganon killed everyone, Zelda sealed him off, and now you have to go help her. The importance of the memories is not watching the events unfold, because we already know the outcome. What makes a story interesting is watching Zelda's character grow. Through watching the memories, we learn that Zelda is not able to use the magic she should have. She struggles to find a balance between being the princess Hyrule needs and being her own person. She can't seem to awaken her powers because she's trying to do so out of obligation, and this makes her feel worthless. When Ganon rises and kills everyone, she is devastated because she knows that people just lost their lives because she couldn't do the one thing she was meant to do. Her failure to obtain her powers is also why she resents Link at the start of the game. Seeing the chosen hero fulfilling his role only reminds her of her own failures. But over time, she warms up to him, starts opening up to him, and eventually grows to care for him. So, after everyone else is dead and Link's about to join them, in a last-ditch effort to protect her knight, she finally manages to awaken her powers. This scene is not impactful because of what happens. We already knew that was going to happen. We knew that Zelda had to obtain her powers to seal Ganon, and Link had to take a 100-year dirt nap. This scene is impactful because it's the conclusion of Zelda's character arc. She finally managed to awaken her powers, not because she was expected to, but because that's what she needed to save the last living person she cared about. Obtaining these memories out of order really doesn't hinder the story either. All of the memories show us different parts of Zelda's characters, and getting later memories first doesn't render early memories worthless. Plus, piecing the story together yourself is a fun and unique way to experience a story. Now, if the story was less focused on a character and more focused on the events that were happening, then the memory format wouldn't really work. Oh no. Tears of the Kingdom story is gravely hindered by the memory format. For starters, Zelda's character is already completed. She does not grow at all in this story, and neither does anyone else. We also don't know much about what's going on at the start of the game, only that Rauru will eventually seal Ganondorf away. This game's story is more focused on the events itself, rather than how those events affect people. Because of this, getting memories out of order really hurts the story. The first scene I saw with Ganondorf was him asserting dominance over Sonia's corpse and becoming the Demon King. And just like that, the memories featuring Ganondorf's introduction, meeting with Rauru, and Sonia's death now serve no purpose because I already know what those events led up to, and there's nothing else to be gained from viewing those scenes. Heck, even ignoring the storytelling method and just focusing on the plot itself, nothing meaningful happens. Characters just do what they need to do for the plot to proceed. There's no fun dialogue, interesting character dynamics, meaningful character development, or impactful scenes. I bet that last part has some of you scratching your head, so allow me to explain why Zelda turning into a dragon is not impactful. The only thing that scene has going for it is shock value, and once the shock wears off, it loses all impact. Turning into a dragon was not a hard decision that Zelda had to make. The moment the Master Sword was sent into the past, she knew what she had to do and did it without hesitation. This scene does not do anything for Zelda's character. She's basically just doing what she did in the last game, but without a proper build-up this time. This transformation also doesn't impact the plot that much. She restores the Master Sword and gives Link a ride for an admittedly pretty cool final boss, but once that's all said and done, she is reverted to a human. I never expected Zelda to stay a dragon, but I did expect that the events of the past would have some consequences. Breath of the Wild ends with Link and Zelda setting out to fix a Hyrule that was broken because they failed 100 years ago. The actions of the characters in the past is shown to have a major impact on the world they live in now, while Tears of the Kingdom's ending has absolutely nothing to do with the past, and instead features 4 guys saying they will simp for Zelda. The events in this game impacted absolutely nothing, not the world, nor the characters that live in it. What a banger ending. And we haven't even gotten to my biggest gripe with Tears of the Kingdom yet. Up to this point, none of my gripes with this game have been too terrible. Sure, the story is bad and the gameplay is a downgrade, but I still found the game to be enjoyable enough. But the more I played, the more I realized Tears of the Kingdom has one massive fatal flaw. And it has nothing to do with the game itself, rather the experience it provides. Because that experience is nearly identical to the one found in Breath of the Wild. Now obviously, Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel, so of course the games are going to be similar, but they are way too similar. So much from Breath of the Wild has been copy-pasted into Tears of the Kingdom. Both games start the same, on a small remote location where you need to complete 4 shrines while being guided by a dead king of Hyrule. Your 4 main objectives take place in the same 4 areas as last time, and involve you teaming up with the same 4 characters from last time, except Teba for some reason. The 4 main dungeons are once again open with scattered puzzles, and there are even faceless nameless stages that just exist so a dead hero can help you with the dungeons again. You explore the same map looking for shrines and memories again, and the memories tell a similar story of the past where Ganon could not be stopped so he was sealed away, and Zelda made a huge sacrifice in the hopes that Link would eventually come to save the day. Ganon is once again a two-faced fight, with the first being a normal fight and the second being a climactic victory lap. Both games end by letting you know you completed your main objective before rolling the credits, with an extra scene at the end if you got all the memories. There are so many other directions this sequel could have gone. Maybe one of the main quests could have had you fixing the broken Master Sword, or maybe one of the main dungeons could be in the Deku Forest this time. I'm not saying it's bad that neither of those ended up happening, I'm just using those to show that there are an endless amount of ways that Tears of the Kingdom could have set itself apart, but instead it's just Breath of the Wild again. And because the experience both games offer are identical, then one of the games is bound to feel obsolete. And if it wasn't obvious, I think Breath of the Wild is the better game, leaving Tears of the Kingdom feeling forgettable. As strange as this may sound, I don't dislike Tears of the Kingdom, nor do I think it's a bad video game. You don't no-life a game for 80 hours if it's miserable, nor do you spend that time doing optional side content. I had fun playing Tears of the Kingdom. However, I don't think a game being fun is an accomplishment, it's the bare minimum. It's what I expect from every single game I play. So besides just being fun, what else does Tears of the Kingdom accomplish? Is it extremely fun? More fun than most other games I've played? No. Does it expand upon the open world or Zelda formula in any meaningful way? No. Does it have any fun new mechanics? No. Does it tell an engaging story with interesting characters? No. Is the experience it offers unique or memorable? No. The only thing that Tears of the Kingdom has going for it is that it's fun. The bare minimum. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think a game being fun is all that matters. Maybe you think the story is good or that the experience is unique. Maybe you think that the game improved upon Breath of the Wild in every way. And if you think that way, then I'm happy for you. Truly. I'm glad that you see value in this game that I can't. I'm not making this video with the hopes of changing your mind. I just want people to understand my perspective. Because to me, Breath of the Wild will forever live on in my mind as a unique game with a world that I loved exploring. As for Tears of the Kingdom, once it gets its undeserved Game of the Year award, I will probably never think about this half-baked clone ever again. Seriously, Pizza Tower deserves that award.